Welcome to Lesson 7.8, Finding Rules for Comparing Fractions. Today you will need Math Journal, page 238, and Math Masters, page 248 to 249. Let's begin with today's math message. Steve is sorting the number size of his fraction cards into two groups, fractions greater than 1/2 and fractions less than 1/2. He made a mistake. What mistake did Steve make? Use your fraction number line poster, fraction strips, fraction circles, or fraction cards to help you. Mark an X on the card that Steve put in the wrong group. Show or explain how you decided. Then answer the other question below. Pause this video and complete Math Journal, page 238. You should have noticed that 3/8 is in the wrong spot. Sample answers include: Steve should have put the 3/8 card in the group with fractions less than 1/2. On the fraction number line poster, 1/2 is equal to 4/8. Because 3/8 is less than 4/8, 3/8 is less than 1/2. Again, you could have used fraction circles or fraction strips to make a similar comparison. Then it said to write a rule that Steve could use to check whether a fraction is greater than 1/2 or less than 1/2. If the denominator is more than 2 times the numerator, then the fraction is less than 1/2. That sounds a little complicated, but let's look at the fraction 3/8. The numerator is 3. So if the denominator is more than 2 times the numerator, so 3, the numerator, 3, times 2 would be 6. The denominator, 8, is more than 6. Therefore, the fraction is less than 1/2. Here are some other rules to keep in mind when comparing fractions. If the numerator is greater than half of the denominator, then the fraction is greater than 1/2. So, if the numerator, 3, is greater than half of the denominator, half of 4, or divided by 2, is 2. The numerator, 3, is greater than 2, therefore, this fraction is greater than 1/2. The second helpful rule is if the denominator is less than double the numerator, then the fraction is greater than 1/2. So the denominator, 8, needs to be less than the numerator doubled. So 5 times 2 is 10. 8 is less than 10, therefore 5/8 is greater than 1/2. Last rule, if double the numerator, so 2 times 2 is 4, is less than the denominator, then the fraction is less than 1/2. 4 is less than 6, so 2/6 is less than 1/2. Again, you can use your fraction number lines to help check any of these. Now you need Math Masters, page 248. Let's read the directions. For each problem, you may use any of your fraction tools to help: fraction circles, fraction strips, fraction number line poster, or fraction cards if you have them. Think about these fractions: 1/6, 1/8, 1/10, 1/3, 1/4, 1/2, 1/5. Write the fractions in order from least to greatest. If you have a highlighter at home, you might want to highlight that part. What does it mean to order fractions from least to greatest? What do you think? Right. I want to put the fractions in order from the smallest fraction, the fraction that covers the least amount of the whole, to the largest fraction, the fraction that's closest to a whole. What patterns do you notice? How are these fractions the same or different? Think about these fractions: 2/6, 2/3, 2/8, 2/4, 2/10, 2/5. Write the fractions in order, again, from least to greatest. What patterns do you notice? How are these fractions the same or different? So besides ordering both sets of fractions from least to greatest, what else are you asked to do for these problems? Point to the other set of directions. Right, you're going to be looking for patterns. Remember to think of each fraction as a part of something, like pizza. Plain, pepperoni, whatever you like. As you are solving questions 1 and 2, I want you to think about these questions. First, how do you know that this fraction is smaller or larger than that one? What tools can you use to order the fractions? What is the same or different about this group of fractions in A, or number 1, than in the group of fractions in number 2? What patterns do you notice? By keeping these questions in mind, and by especially using your tools, you should be able to successfully order both groups of fractions. Please pause this video now to complete Math Masters page 248, questions 1 and question 2. Once you're done with number 1 and 2, it's time to solve question 3 on page 249. Question 3 asks you to write a rule for ordering fractions with the same numerator. Again, write a rule for ordering fractions with the same numerator. You might want to ask yourself, are they asking you to write a rule for question 1, or question 2, or both? Some other things to keep in mind are, think about the numerators and denominators in problem 1. Again, what patterns do you see with the numerators and denominators? How is the size of the denominator related to the size of the fractions when the numerators are all 1? Think about fraction circle pieces or pizzas. Last, does the rule need to work for any set of fractions with the same numerator? Again, would the rule you created work for question 1 and 2, any set of fractions? Use some of the words in the word bank below as you write your rule. Try to use at least 3 math words in the word bank to write the best possible rule that you can. Once you've completed all 3 questions, please record yourself on Flipgrid. Some questions I'd like you to answer in your Flipgrid video are, what order did you put the fractions for number 1 in? And what patterns did you notice for problem 1? What order did you put the fractions for number 2 in? And what patterns did you notice? Last, read the rule that you wrote for number 3. Please keep in mind, if you're holding up papers, that's awesome, but your partners may not be able to see it and I may not be able to see it. So reading off the information on your paper is the best strategy. We will share with partners and revise our work tomorrow using a rubric. Good luck and happy solving!